Welcome back to Psychology with Dipali, the best destination for great content in psychology. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Psychology with Dipali. Today, we are going to learn about projective techniques, which is a method of personality assessment. And in that, we will be learning about the Rorschach Inkblot Test. So, we start with the interesting question of the day. And the question is, do you know what is the connection between a popular game played by school children and a personality test which revolutionized the way personality was measured? So, we'll know the answer as we go along. What are projective techniques? Basically, projective techniques are indirect methods of personality assessment. So, if you look at what are direct methods, we will know that direct methods of personality assessment, wherein we ask questions through a questionnaire or an inventory or through interviewing, makes people very self-conscious, and people hesitate to share their private feelings or their thoughts and their motivations. So, whenever they are sharing their feelings or thoughts or motivations, when we're asking them directly, they do it in a socially desirable manner, which means that they will try to portray themselves as positive individuals, as good individuals, where they are trying to make a positive impression about themselves on others. So, therefore, direct methods have this kind of drawback. So, according to psychoanalytic theory, a large part of our behavior or human behavior is due to what is there in the unconscious. So, whatever is there in the unconscious is what is actually governing or ruling our behavior and deciding our behavior. So, therefore, projective methods are something which has been developed as part of the psychoanalytic perspective, which tries to measure the personality of a person through indirect methods. So, since direct methods of personality assessment cannot uncover always what is there in the unconscious or what are the hidden motives of the person, the direct methods will not be able to uncover what is normally not revealed by a person. So, therefore, they fail to provide us with a clear picture of the personality of an individual's true personality. So, since we are getting an incomplete picture of the personality of a person through direct methods, there is something called indirect methods, which are then used to understand and to assess the personality. So, some of these direct methods, which are therefore used earlier, were the questionnaires and inventories. And to overcome the drawbacks of these direct methods, there were certain projective techniques which were created, and all the projective techniques basically are coming in the category of indirect measurement. Now, what is the purpose of a projective technique? A projective technique is something which was developed to assess the unconscious motives, feelings, and conflicts of the person. And what is the basis of the projective technique? These techniques have a particular assumption on which they are based, and the assumption is that whenever we are providing an individual with a less structured or an unstructured kind of stimulus or situation, this will allow the person to project his or her feelings onto that unstructured stimulus or situation. So, therefore, what is happening is, if I am not sure as to what the stimulus or situation is, which I'm supposed to give answers to, I will then try to answer in a way which is a true reflection of my personality, which means I am projecting my personality, that is, my needs, my desires, my motives, and conflicts onto that stimulus or onto that situation, which will then lead to a better assessment of what my true personality is. So, a variety of projective techniques have been used, and there are some which use stimulus materials of various kinds. So, some will have stimulus materials where you have to associate certain stimuli with other kind of stimuli. Say, for example, words are given and the person is asked to associate other words, or ink blots, which are in the form of a picture card, are provided, and the person has to associate whatever he feels comes to his mind by seeing that particular ink blot. Then there are also story writing activities where picture cards are provided with certain characters, certain figures presented on those cards, and the person has to create a story around those characters. Then there is sentence completion tasks where an incomplete sentence, or let's say the stem of a sentence, is provided. For example, a sentence would be, my mother is dash. Now, the dash part is something which the person is to fill up, and he or she could write whatever he or she feels. So, this is again an indirect method of trying to assess what are his true motives, feelings, and desires. Then there are tests which use drawings, and the way the person draws, what he draws, and the mannerisms while he's drawing. All of this is taken into account while assessing the personality. And then all of these stimuli either are used individually or in a combination, so that we can have a better assessment of what the true personality of a person is. So, what are the similarities in all of these projective methods that we just talked about? First, the stimuli, whichever stimuli are used, are relatively unstructured or they are poorly defined, which means there is no clear-cut way of perceiving that stimulus. That is why the person can choose to perceive it in his or her own way based on what he or she is feeling or perceiving at that point of time. So that is one way of trying to get to the true nature or to the true personality of the person. Then the person being assessed is usually not told what is the purpose of assessment. That is, what are we going to do with the answers that you give to all these stimuli which we are presenting to you? And also, how are we going to score it and how are we going to interpret it? So all this kind of information is not revealed to the person. And since it is an unstructured kind of stimulus, the person is not able to even gauge or understand in which way my answers are going to be interpreted or assessed, and what kind of an understanding of my personality will this examiner arrive at. So therefore, they are also told that there is no correct or incorrect answer, which means that there is no answer which is technically right or technically wrong. Whatever they tell or whatever they write or whatever they draw, depending upon which test is being used, is interpreted accordingly using certain scoring criteria, which the testee or the person who's doing the test is not aware of. Each response is considered to reveal a significant aspect of personality. So every response that the person makes on the test, which is given to all the stimuli, is something which the person is revealing some part of his or her own personality with every response that he gives. And this kind of aspect of projective testing is what actually gives us certain information which we don't get through the direct methods. Then the scoring and the interpretation methodology for each of the projective tests which are there is quite a time consuming process. They are fairly lengthy in terms of the time required, and they are also sometimes subjective, which means it all depends upon the discretion of the examiner in terms of his interpretative skills, whether he is able to interpret the responses in the right way and without any kind of bias. That the level to which he is able to do that will decide how subjective the interpretation is. And most of the answers which are available to the examiner from the person who has done the test have to be analyzed in a qualitative manner, which means we always don't get any quantifiable scoring criteria, but we get certain kinds of themes, we get certain kinds of broad areas where the problems or the conflicts or the needs or the motives of the person may actually be present. So the answer to the question of the day is Hermann Rorschach, and the game that he used to as a basis for creating a test is klexography. So what did he actually do? He was a Swiss psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst, and he was a developer of the Inkblot personality test, which is normally known as the Rorschach Inkblot Test. And he had a great interest in drawing since a young age, and he was trained in art. In school, he was also called by his school friends as Klex, which means ink blot. And this was the reason for this was because he liked the art of Klexography. Now, what is Klexography? Klexography is a popular game which is played among school children, which consists of dropping spots of ink or color onto a piece of paper and then folding it in half. So the ink or the color then smudges and forms a mirror reflection in the two halves of the paper. Once the piece of paper is unfolded and allowed to dry, after that, that pattern which is created can be used to guess, does it resemble any particular object that we can see around us or anything else? So this is something which is a very popular game, and he used this particular game, which he was very fond of, along with his fondness for drawing. And the scientific reason for seeing these patterns or images as resembling particular objects is based on the phenomenon of apophenia. That is because we have a human tendency to see patterns in nature. So wherever we see something which we're not able to make sense of, we try to make sense of it by seeing certain patterns which is something familiar to us. So Klexography later became the foundation of the Rorschach Inkblot Test. And his education in art was also very helpful in the development of a set of inkblots that he created. And they were used experimentally initially to measure various kind of unconscious parts of the personality of the person. Now, the Rorschach test consists of 10 inkblot images, out of which 5 are black, white, or gray, a mixture. 2 have some red ink in them, and 3 are in pastel colors. Now, what happens is during the test, the subject is provided with each of the 10 cards one by one. It's not all together. Each card is presented individually, one after the other. And the subject is then asked to describe what he or she thinks the card looks like. So as the card is given to the subject, the examiner will ask the subject, what is it that you are able to see on this card? And then the subject can answer in any way he or she wants. So the test takers, that is the subject who is doing the test, are allowed to hold the cards in any way they want, in any position. So they can hold it straight, upside down, or even sideways. The choice is entirely theirs. And the respondents are free to interpret the images that they see on the card, that is the blocks that they see on the card, whichever way they want. So they can focus on the image as a whole, that is the whole card, which they can see the whole ink blot as one particular image, or they can see certain aspects of the image and say that it resembles something, or even they can see the white space that is surrounding the image and say that looks like something. So the answering pattern or what they are focusing on when they are actually seeing certain things in that card is something which is entirely up to the person. How they respond also is dependent on the person. They may say that they see either one thing only. So after giving one response, the person may say that I don't see anything else in it. Or they may see several things. So they may give one response, then they say that it also looks like this. Then they may say that this also looks like that. And they may give multiple responses. Or sometimes, in rare cases, a person may say that I don't see anything at all in it. So they will give no response. So that is also sometimes seen. Now, what is the process after the initial response? Once the subject has provided the response, one or more of responses, the psychologist will then ask additional questions to get the subject to further elaborate on his or her initial expressions. So questions are asked regarding what is it about the blot that determined the subject's response. So as you can see on the screen, you have the 10 blots, that is the 10 cards of the Rorschach Inkblot Test. And on each of the cards, you have certain blots which can represent various kinds of objects or images. So they are asked exactly, let us say take card number 1, and many common and popular responses are that it looks like a bat or it looks like some animal. And if the person has said that, the examiner would ask him, what is it about this blot or this pattern that made you feel that it is an animal? It could be any other response also that the subject has given, and the examiner will then ask him, what is it about the nature of the blot or what is there in that picture or the card or the pattern which makes him or her feel that it is that particular object? Now, there are two phases in which the entire testing procedure is conducted. First phase is called the performance proper phase. It is also called the response phase or the pre-association phase. Now, this is the phase where they are shown the cards and they are asked to tell what they see in each of them. Then it is followed by inquiry, which is a detailed report of the response, such as where did you see that particular object, which part of the card, and on what basis did you make that response? What is it about that part of the card which made you feel that this looked like that particular object? So fine judgment is then necessary by the examiner to place the subject's responses in a meaningful context. And the use and the interpretation of this test requires a lot of training on the part of the examiner. So unless the person is a trained examiner, it is not possible to really interpret the subject's responses adequately. Lots of computer techniques also have been developed to aid in this process of interpretation. Now, what are the key aspects of the analysis process? The analysis includes what is the actual content of the responses, which means what the person said. Did he say it was a dog? Did he say it was a whale? Did he say it was a shoe or whatever? Whatever the person saw, what he saw in that particular card and what he said about what he saw is the actual content of the responses. Then there are other factors also which are taken into account. How do they describe the image? Is there any emotional tone to their description? Do they do it in detail? Do they take a shortcut and they just give very, very monosyllabic responses? Or how long they take to respond? Sometimes the subject may just look at the card and not respond for very long and then suddenly give a response. Or there are some individuals who, the moment the card comes in the hand, they start responding. So, how long do they take to respond, or do they respond fast or late? It all depends upon how the person is seeing the cards. If the person takes a very long time to respond, then it may be possible that they have wanted to say something, but they are trying to suppress the true response. So the response is being suppressed because whatever feeling or emotion is being provoked by that particular card or that particular pattern that they're seeing on the card is something that they don't want to accept within themselves, and therefore they try to suppress it by not giving a response and then think of something else to say. So that also can be an indication to the examiner that these are the factors which are actually making the person delay his response. Now, if a patient responds very quickly to all the inkblots, except let's say one or two, then we can assume that there is a hesitance towards that particular topic, which is again being provoked by that particular card, or a particular emotion which the person is not comfortable with. If the person responds in a same way or a similar way to all the inkblots, that means there is something which is a common theme that we can see in the responses. So let's say if all the blots elicit a fear response in the subject, which means he is seeing something in every card which is being described as fearful, then the person may be struggling with that kind of fear which may have been suppressed by him. So all these issues, all these other behaviors actually will reveal more sometimes about the true motives of the person rather than only what he's saying. How he says it, what is the speed, what is the kind of pattern of responses, all this makes a difference. And of course, in terms of the number of responses, the more varied the responses are, that means he's giving multiple responses to the same card, that indicates that the person is possessing a high level of intelligence. So what are the scoring variables therefore? To sum it up, there are 5 different scoring variables. First is the location, that is the whole blot or the whole picture or the whole card taken to give an answer, or a large part is used by the subject to give an answer, or only a small detail. Second is determinants. Is it the form or the shape of the pattern which is making him give that particular response? Is it the color, or is it the shading of the blot which is making the person feel that this is resembling a particular object? Third is form quality. Is it something he's seeing conventionally, or giving something which is out of the ordinary, which some maybe other people may not see, or give a see something which is actually not meant to be seen in that particular type of shape or pattern. So is it a distorted response? Fourth is popular responses. That is, does he give answers which is similar to what many people would see in the card, which are called popular responses? Or is the person giving idiosyncratic responses? That is, responses which only he has given and nobody else has given that kind of response to that particular part of the card. And the last scoring variable is content. That is, what type of objects is the person seeing in the patterns or in the inkblots. So do share, like, and subscribe to my channel, Psychology with Dipali. Do follow me on Instagram also, and let me know which topics you would like me to bring videos for you on. And keep watching and keep learning. That's all from me now.